My name's Dan Weeks. I serve as Executive Director of Open Democracy and this New Hampshire Rebellion. And we've start of day 2 here. We had a bit of a crazy yesterday. Are we live here, Mr. Waterston?
Yes.
Well, first of all, how are you doing, sir?
I'm fine. I'm hungry.
You're hungry. Did we get you something?
I have stuff.
Okay,
I'm
but
here to
we
talk
haven't
first.
even let you eat
No,
it.
no.
Do you want to munch
I'll
to your
save
apple
for my
as you go?
supper.
All right.
Talk for my breakfast.
Well, thank you. How are you feeling this morning?
Just dandy. How about you? I'm
Pretty
very
well.
excited to be here. I really wanted to see what the New Hampshire Rebellion looked like. And it's...
Are we as good looking as you thought?
yes, you are. You're just as good looking as I expected.
Now, I want you to know, Sam, you paid a little price to get here. It was going to be a nice, scenic 2.5-hour drive. What did it turn into yesterday?
It turned into 5 hours because in my rearview mirror, every mile, every time I went over a hill, I came from northwestern Connecticut, every time I went over a hill, I could see in the rearview mirror that the weather was clearing up behind me. But I was still in the snowstorm, so I came in the snowstorm all the way.
So we offered to bring you north where you'd get away from the snow.
Really nice.
Just like this whole winter has been, as D.C. in the south was getting swamped. We had spring 2 days ago, and then suddenly, because it wouldn't be the New Hampshire Rebellion without snow and freezing.
No, exactly.
So we had to order some snow.
I thought it was my qualifying truck because I'd never been here before, so I figured some sacrifice had to be shown in order to be able to be amongst you.
Well, would you give it up? 5 hours driving to be here solo. We didn't send any drivers. He just made the trip. We said, can we get you a hotel? And we sort of winked and nodded and said, well, we can't actually afford it on primary weekend. Would you consider staying with one of our wonderful board members? And you immediately said yes.
I had a great night. Yeah,
All right.
It was lovely.
They put you up okay at the Reno's?
Yeah, beautiful.
Great. Now, a few folks here, I think, got to meet you yesterday. But would you, for the benefit of those who didn't, just say why in the heck, as an actor who could be probably in L.A. filming some cool thing right now, why come here to New Hampshire, and why even join this whole democracy movement in your probably very limited spare time?
Well, once you're interested in election reform, you have to. You can't stay away from here. You have to meet you people because I mean, you must know this, but you have such an impact nationwide. Just your being here and marching and continuing and not giving up and sticking with the issue and just your perseverance has such an effect. And I really think that if somebody had a sophisticated enough way to measure it, they would be able to trace the 84% of the people in the United States of America today who think that campaign finance reform needs to happen. I think they could trace it to you. You're part of, it's turning into a big river, but you were one of the, it's like going to the head of the Nile. So
I don't mind hearing that. Hear.
It's great.
Now, I'd love to hear you keep saying just that same thing over and over, but how did you get into campaign finance in the first place? Why did you care?
Well, I knew some people in Washington who had an absolutely beautiful idea, which was that they were going to have a people's convention online so that everybody who wanted to could be a delegate to the convention. And the purpose of the convention online was going to be to nominate a Republican and a Democrat to run on a unity ticket on the premise that we people are less divided than our politics makes us appear.
Look at that. Wow.
So this was a really, really good idea, which was killed in its crib by the Federal Elections Commission, which sounds like a high-minded and disinterested organization, but is actually run entirely by Republicans and Democrats, and they don't agree about anything except that they don't want anybody else messing around in their turf. So So what they did was that they had us classified as if we were an advocacy group for a candidate, which severely limited our ability to raise money.
Raising money.
So, it turns out that money is the oxygen of politics. And so, just like a person who isn't getting enough oxygen, it's very hard to be heard. So that did it. And while I was in mourning for this, I was at the Kennedy School of Government giving a talk about it like it was still going to work, but it wasn't. And I met Arnold Hyatt.
Arnie Hyatt, very good man, a supporter of ours.
Familiar name to you?
And he started making the case, perhaps, as he does to everybody.
He said, I don't think you stand much of a chance. Things look bad for you, but you should talk to these campaign and election reform people. And he put me in touch with Nick Neihart. And the rest is history. That's 10 years ago. And it has felt like, well, it's 9.5 years ago, just to be... In politics, temptation to exaggerate is. But it's been perking along and perking. Well, you know this. How long have you been at this?
It's been 15 years, I think.
Yeah. So it's been perking along, but now it feels like it's got some real momentum, doesn't it?
Does anybody agree with that? You've been to Capitol Hill. I think you've talked to a lot of members of Congress. What kind of response do you get when you tell them they should stop this system that has gotten them elected just fine of raising these big contributions and getting the super PACs? What do you say to them, and what do they say back?
Well, I think a lot of campaign and election reform is tempting to them.
But why is that?
Well, because they have to spend so much of their time on the phone. And
they're telemarketers.
Yeah, they're telemarketing. And it's, well, first of all, I don't know how you feel about asking people for money, but it's not, for me, it's
not
really,
the funnest thing
it's like
in the world.
pulling teeth. So they have to do that every day. And it's not why a lot of them got into politics. So they would love it if there was another system, but they got here under this one, so what if it went bad for them?
They do want to keep their jobs.
Yeah, so the key is popular pressure. Hello, New Hampshire
Pounding the
Rebellion.
pavement, making it a voting issue. A little sidebar, we will be hearing from some of those members this afternoon. Congressman John Sarbanes, who is the leader of the push for fair elections, public funding in Congress, along with our own Congresswoman Custer.
And I would just say, that I live in the state of Connecticut, and politicians who are worried about this should talk to politicians in Connecticut, because there has not been a wholesale replacement of the politicians from the past, but there has been a lot of new blood too, and it's generally working.
Does anyone know the system in Connecticut that Sam is referring to? The Citizens Election Program. This was the first state back in 2005. I was a college kid in Connecticut and got to cut my teeth at this. The first state to legislatively adopt citizen-funded elections, where candidates agree to opt out of the big money system, like the Fair Elections Act you've lobbied for in Congress, and they take donations up to $100, nothing more. And if they can show they're serious, they get a bunch of these up front to prove their viability. They get matching public funds to run a campaign. So
simple.
Pretty simple.
and it passes constitutional muster, so it works that way. It's good.
Now, the really important question, Mr. McCoy, who you got rather acquainted with over how many seasons of Law & Order?
16, but who's counting?
Well, maybe the longest-running TV character of all time?
No, but I don't know about that. But
I think I read it was the second
show
longest,
was
perhaps.
tied for first for longest-running TV show, but I wasn't on it the whole time.
Any fans of Law & Order in the crowd? Here, here. Mr. McCoy was a pretty upstanding guy.
Yes.
A pretty smart guy.
Yes.
If he were to run for Congress, any glimpses of what his platform would be? I'm putting you on the spot here. But
Well, it would be a law and order platform. That's a pretty simple
Fair
question.
would he touch campaign finance reform? Would he see the connections?
I don't know whether that ever got on his radar, to be honest. But you know, we're talking about a fictional character here.
I know.
We could make up anything.
But, please, go right ahead.
Oh, he'd be all for it.
There we go. The next President McCoy for campaign finance reform. Is there anything else? You are a professional actor, obviously, world famous, and we're going to ask you if we can put you on the spot in a moment.
No, we're going to put you guys on the spot.
All right.
All I'm going to do is read words. You're going to be on the spot. You've got to guess who said them.
That's right. I'm maybe stretching too much, but acting in politics, we're going to have some politicians on the stage later today. Any tips? Should politics be acting? Is that okay, or is that just pulling the wool in front of people's eyes? How do you look at politics as an actor? And any perspectives on acting versus politics?
I think I'm old enough that I remember politicians making their case without the help of television. So I think what has happened is, and the lessons were learned the hard way by Richard Nixon being on television and sweating. Does anybody remember that? That was
that famous debate.
And so then you don't sweat, and so all kinds of personal presentation questions that hadn't been such a big issue before became essential. So if you're going to be on TV to some degree or another, you have to perform. I don't think that there's a necessary distinction between performing and telling the truth.
Not a necessary distinction, but a sometimes distinction.
Yeah.
Before we put you on the spot, are there any questions from the audience for Mr. Waterston? They can be money in politics, or you can ask anything and he can answer or not as he chooses. But it's not every day that we get a guest of your stature with us. So I'll just come around with the mic. Quick questions, and we'll get into the program in a few minutes.
Okay. Hi, Scott Spinucci, producer of Nexus of Power, working on, oddly enough, media and big money's influence on U.S. presidential politics. So my question that I asked Bernie Sanders just recently, I said, I think we all know that we have a money problem in politics, but isn't it true that we have a big media problem? And I guess it's a great question for you since you've been in media for a while. Can you possibly expand upon how money influences the media, and maybe it's two sides of the same coin, but I see this as a huge problem as well.
I have a feeling you know more about this than I do if you're working on a movie about it. But I mean, they're obviously codependent. Whether take money out of the equation, the media and politics are codependent. They feed each other. Politics sells newspapers in the old paradigm, and it attracts eyeballs in the new. And then once you've found that you've got a way to attract eyeballs, then you've got to feed the beast. So I think an awful lot of what goes on cable news, which I can't stop watching, even though I know this, it's just to keep me watching. It's just a feedback loop.
Entertainment.
And it is. It's entertainment. And so the more dramatic, the more conflict, the more cliffhangery, the more, oh my God, what's going to happen tonight there is. I mean, there were people on television before the Iowa caucus talking like this was the end, when it was really, just the beginning of the beginning. So, and so there's all that kind of distortion that goes on, that's for sure. Then I don't think it's so different from the days when the Republicans had a newspaper and the Democrats had a newspaper. I mean, I played Abraham Lincoln. You should see the things that the opposition newspapers said about him. And we all know what the opposition newspaper said about Thomas Jefferson. So this goes back a long, long way of people with money buying a megaphone to make a case. And I don't think there's any way that that's ever going to end, and I would not be an advocate for it to end. I think there ought to be plenty of room for every voice to be heard. And that's what I mean, every voice. And if somebody's got a lot of money and they want to buy a newspaper and make their case in the newspaper, or buy a television network and make their case on the television network, that's fine. It's just buying the politicians that's not okay.
So if we can distribute the source of the money, I think it was mentioned yesterday, many of you read the New York Times a few months ago, 158 families provided half the money funding the presidential campaigns as of last fall. If we could move from those 158 to millions and millions of Americans through a small donor public funding system, there could still be a lot of money and a lot of media and so on, but it would be representative.
Yes.
Was there another question over here? Bob, a member of the Open Democracy Board.
I have a benign question for you, Mr. Waterston. A benign question.
Good.
Over the years, I've enjoyed the TV series I'll Fly Away, which was just a wonderful series. And before that, I believe, was another wonderful series called Palmer's Town. So when I like a program, it's always guaranteed to be deleted from TV. But could you talk a little bit about that I'll Fly Away series?
They had after we'd been on the air for a little while, and we weren't getting the ratings that they needed. And to be fair to NBC, they were in a tough spot at that time. They needed some shows that got a lot of eyeballs. So the head of NBC came up to me at this party and he said, "You know, I should cancel your show. Your ratings are just terrible, but my wife won't let me." So we were...
The real reason why things do and don't get done in this world.
You know, we were hanging by a thread from the start. So it's a miracle. It's a miracle that a television network in that day and age, especially when as low in the rankings as NBC was at the time, it's amazing that they made the show at all. So I feel like that we got on the air is a huge win. I think it's, you know, there's life in the old beast yet, even when it's governed by ratings. Sometimes good things happen.
We have time for one last question. Anyone? Was there...
Paul Revere.
Our James Madison, our fourth president.
Oh,
Sir.
James Madison, I beg your pardon. I mistook you for Paul Revere.
We look nothing alike.
Exactly.
He was a rabble-rouser.
I'm so ashamed of myself.
Sir, I understand that you are from Connecticut.
This is true.
Recently, one of the companies based in your state has decided to relocate to my state because your state has decided that GE should pay their taxes, whereas my governor has declared that GE won't have to pay taxes if they come to Massachusetts. To be precise, they have proposed giving GE $245 million of our tax money. And so, please, sir, will you please take GE back? We don't want them.
I don't think I should say anything about that.
Are the cameras rolling? Can we get them on record? Well, speaking of saying things, we did want to move now to just a fun little exercise to get us warmed up, get everybody thinking, put our actor on the spot, and then we're going to call up the first panel, which we're very excited about. So, Mr. Waterston, if you would maybe come in view of the screen.
I can see it.
You don't need to read that, but we've got a couple of fun quotes. Some great things have been said about money in politics over the years. And we wanted to ask our famous actor to just read them out in whatever manner you feel inspired, and then any guesses from the crowd as to who said these crazy things.
Okay, so here's the first one. Who said money is oxygen in politics?
Hey.
That's right. So far you're batting 1,000.
We'll get that in for the
Now,
next.
money is the mother's milk of politics. Who said that?
A lobbyist. A lobbyist.
A lobbyist?
A lobbyist. I don't know.
Any other guesses?
Mark Hanna.
Not quite, not quite. Did I hear it from... Let's go to the next slide. Jesse Big Daddy Unruh, California State Treasurer, miscellaneous Democratic boss out in California. Who said that? Very, very nice. We have your little prize. No New Hampshire Rebel is complete without some hydration. Your water bottle. All right, to the next one, Zanny.
There are two things that are important in politics. The first is money, and I can't remember what the second one is. I know who said this.
Who said that?
It wasn't
Somebody.
Somebody in New
I know
York,
somebody
right?
knows this.
no.
I know somebody knows this because I heard this name moments ago.
Isn't it a big?
Mark Hanna.
Yeah.
The man behind McKinley and so many other Republicans who I think made a practice of actually assessing corporations, their hundreds of thousands. This was the Gilded Age, so that was a lot of money to fund campaigns, and you had the senator from Standard Oil and so on. Anyway, next one.
Yes, and they used to say about Pennsylvania that it had the best government money could buy.
Right.
Washington is like a strip club. You've got people tossing dollars and people doing the dance.
This is a more contemporary one. He's been a champion of this cause a couple of cycles primaries ago. Any guesses?
I don't know.
Unless I'm mixing this up with one of our others. He ran for president. Ralph Nader, Lawrence Lessig, no. No. A Republican reformer from down south.
John Anderson. Ron Paul.
Is that right? No. It's Mike Huckabee. Hey, let's give it up for our friend, Republican friend Mike Huckabee. If he comes, we'll give him a bottle. Who's up next? All right.
Hey, a handful of billionaires can't buy our elections. Right, of course not. They can only pour unlimited, anonymous cash into a 501c4 if 50% is devoted to issue education. Otherwise, they'd have to...
Sorry, we're getting a little technical here.
They'd have to 501c6 it or funnel it openly through a non-campaign coordinated super PAC.
They can't buy elections, they can just buy elections. Who said this? He's a famous late night guy. Colbert, close. John Stewart. Who gave us John Stewart first?
I have a strong feeling that he read it better than I did.
To you, ma'am. All right. What's up next?
Each time a lobbyist or special interest makes a political contribution to a public servant, a debt is created. Lobbyists are very adept at collecting these debts. Unfortunately, the true debtor on these obligations is the American people. Ooh.
Any guesses? Was this a lobbyist, Annie? A famous lobbyist?
Yeah, it's on the list.
I heard it. Jack Abramoff.
Whoa.
The good old Jack Abramoff, who is a supporter of our cause. We've met with him. He wanted to be here, in fact, couldn't make it.
Was that said when he was in jail?
That might have been after the whole ordeal.
I'm reformed. I'm honestly better. Listen to me, America. They don't care about you because you don't bring a check.
Now, could I ask you to give us that in a bit of a southern drawl, perhaps?
Listen to me, America. They don't care about you because you don't bring a check.
A Southern friend of ours who also ran for president, Buddy Roemer. Very nice. Thank you. And are we on to the last one, perhaps, or just about? I think this is the final one.
We are defenders of an elaborate influence peddling scheme in which both parties conspire to stay in office by selling the country to the highest bidder. Oh, I mean, you just want to weep.
We're just downing you. This was said here in New Hampshire by a guy who had a big impact on my own getting into this crazy business. A guy who was inspired by this fine lady, who of course we should have been quoting, but we'll quote her more later.
Gordon Allen.
Gordon Allen, good guess. Is Gordon in the house? Lessig, not quite. A little before Lessig. Warren Rodman, close. They were friends.
Bernie Sanders.
Not Bernie Sanders, not Simon.
Judge Gregg.
This was the guy who took the New Hampshire primary by storm, doing hundreds of house parties. John McCain is right. Let's get you your water bottle. All right.
So there's broad bipartisan support for this.
Indeed. Well, folks, would you join me in thanking Sam Waterston?
No, let me thank you. Let me thank you.
And you have certainly earned your stripes. Not only did you drive 5 hours yesterday,
but I lost my hat. So you
lost
replaced
your
my hat.
And you lost your hat marching, going over to MUR to tape for the cause. You'll see it tomorrow morning on MUR Close-Up. And not only did you drive your 5 hours, and you'll drive back this afternoon, but you led a march yesterday.
Yes.
Possibly the shortest New Hampshire Rebellion march in history, but still a march.
Which is a good thing because it was cold.
It was cold. We went over to the big Democratic fundraiser at the Verizon Arena.
It was a long way away.
We made it all the way there and back. We chanted and sang and all the rest. Sam, you're going to be around for a few more hours. We're going to send you over to do a little more media, but I think you'll be in the tent as well so people can maybe say hello and take their pictures.
Yes, sure.
When you take your pictures, don't forget to remind the world that you are at the We the People convention at NH Rebellion, #FightBigMoney. If you forget, it's right back there, #FightBigMoney. Please spread this message to the world. And, of course, as you do more walking, we've got to give you one of these. And somewhere we will get you your piece of maple candy.
This is why I came.
So once again, thank you, Sam Waterston. Thank you so much.